I'm Steve Petrunak, and what you just heard was the first part of Movement 1 of Villa-Lobos' Prelude No. 1. It's a song that I've performed several times throughout my music career, and a song that definitely pushes me and my memory to produce the best performance of it every time that I play it. And even with just this little presentation, I feel my own anxiety inside to create a perfect rendition of the piece that kicks in for me. So performance anxiety is something that many musicians struggle with. It's estimated that 15 to 20% of all music students, and professional performers struggle with performance anxiety. Strictly speaking, performance anxiety refers to the anxiety that people experience in anticipation of and/or during important tasks resulting in impaired performance. Now, those tasks just don't have to be music tasks. Certainly getting up at a wedding and sharing a toast can induce that same kind of anxiety that we feel when we're getting up in front of people and sharing. So performance anxiety, it's a real thing. It's not to be ignored, and there's definitely ways of managing it, because that's really the key. The key is learning how to manage the heightened anxiety that we feel when it's time for us to perform. There's really three causes of performance anxiety. The first of which is probably something we all can relate to. That is the fear of failure. And that fear really takes over. And there is, when anxiety is present in our bodies, there's a physiological reaction that happens that causes us to, if it's too extreme, causes us to perform at a lesser level. So that fear of failure is definitely one of the driving forces of performance anxiety. Second one is when we create unrealistic expectations. For example, we expect to make no mistakes, or we expect perfection when perfection is kind of unrealistic in whatever it is that we're doing. Or we think that only a perfect performance is acceptable. And I know many of my colleagues struggle with that, where that level of performance isn't quite as good as what it should be, and therefore it's less than adequate, which is sometimes not true at all. And then the third is a lack of confidence, heightened by what's the negative self-talk that erodes our confidence. It's also coupled with, how do we practice? Do we have enough repetitions? And finally, what do we do with our mistakes when we're practicing? Mistakes are, we have as musicians, most of us have a very wrong impression of what mistakes are and what they offer us. Mistakes are actually opportunities. They're not bad. Mistakes identify for us what part of the music needs more attention, needs more reps. So for us to not want to make a mistake is a great goal. But when a mistake appears, instead of becoming frustrated or angry or all in a tizzy about it, we should be able to just pull back, look at it and say, okay, what is it that is causing me to err in this section? And with repetitions, to be able to iron out whatever the cause of the mistake is. So changing our perspective of what is a mistake and how can it become an advantage for us to have mistakes so that we can become better in our performance is really a key to building our confidence. There are actually 3 formal therapies that can be used to get at performance anxiety. And if you're a person who struggles to a really great extent with performance anxiety, perhaps one of these three therapies would be helpful for you. The first of which is called acceptance and commitment therapy, which helps us to accept unwanted private experiences as they are, rather than trying to avoid or fight against them. Kind of hints back to the mistake, or what happens when we err or our performance is not perfect. But also, the unwanted private experiences. When we're performing, we're in front of people. Those experiences, for some of us, are just, they're not fun, and we don't want to do it. But sometimes we find ourselves, if we're called to a certain ministry, or if we're called to music ministry, we have to be able to play in front of people. So acceptance and commitment therapy is an actual formal therapy that you can enter into to help you manage your performance anxiety. Mindfulness is also something that can be taught, where learning to cope with uncertainty and anxiety in inducing situations is learned, where through our mindfulness we can learn to conquer some of that anxiety that we feel. And finally, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. This is exposing the performer to anxiety-inducing situations that reduces the bodily sensations associated with anxiety and increases the capacity to tolerate the symptoms. Now, that sounds like a lot of psychology speak, but in essence what it is it's learning how to diminish that physiological response that we have to anxiety, how to minimize that, and how to better control the effects or the symptoms that come as a result of that. So that's another form of therapy that can be used.